Out of the big three of like gaming console makers, I definitely expected Nintendo to be the last one to surrender to digital gaming and fully, stop supporting physical. Like think about like what they've done in the past, like they were founded literally off of playing cards in 1889. And to me, it always seems like Nintendo's had, like a physical attachment to just physical games, I just bet someone in there's got a little fetish for them. But yeah, I was pretty shocked when the news came out that the Switch 2 was gonna have game key cards. There wasn't gonna be anything on these cartridges that held any data. There was just gonna be a download code, to download the game. It would essentially be just a key to get the game, from the digital store, and it would install to your storage on your Switch 2 console, and that effectively is not physical. So you could technically be holding a Switch 2, game key card, case and cartridge with it inside it, and you would not be holding, the actual game, which definitely that does cause for some backlash. I do understand the backlash, but looking at it from the perspective of a consumer who loves physical gaming and physical media in general, they're gonna be like, oh, this is masochism, Nintendo. What are you doing? You're pushing the move towards digital with these game key cards, and then you're making developers pay $16 for these 64 GB cartridges. What are you doing, Nintendo? It definitely is frustrating from that standpoint. But if we look at it from a developer's and nerd standpoint, you can start to see why so many Switch 2 games are using the game key cards. It's not just because the physical cartridges that actually store data are too expensive. It's because they just aren't responsible. And the sooner you realize that, the sooner you'll find out that this has been going on for longer than you think. See, not only do cartridges store the data, they also read the data to the console. That's how the console gets the data if it's all on the cartridge. But recently, and by recently I mean in the last 10 to 15 years, games have been getting really big. They are the one media the one form of entertainment that has the biggest file sizes of everything. Out of music, movies and TV, just in general, video games at their biggest can be hundreds of gigabytes. Even with optimization and stuff like that. But that's in the best case scenario. You're seeing what's happening with just unoptimized games, especially with the PS5 Pro, where games are running at 30 FPS. So yeah, optimization is the best case scenario. Worst case scenario, these games, if they are big blockbuster AAA games, they're around the 100 GB mark, maybe even 200 gigabytes. It's a mess. So not only do the cartridges have to store, the actual game data, they also have to transfer it fast enough to the console so that you won't notice a stutter or a lag. And this is called the read speed. The read speed of discs and cartridges is not fast at all. The fastest disc read speeds for Blu-ray discs are 30 or 35 megabits. The PS5's read speeds are 5 gigabytes. Now on the Nintendo side, the cartridges are much faster. They can read stuff to the console at 400 megabytes a second. But comparing that to the Switch 2's read speed, it still pales in comparison because it can read stuff at 2 gigs a second. So when you're going from that big of a jump, it just doesn't make sense to store the game on the cartridge because it's going to be too slow to read the game. If games still shipped on cartridges like how they are today, the games would just have to load and load and load. We would have loading screens galore. I was watching a video by Spawnwave, and honestly, he's the reason why I made this entire video. But he was talking about how a developer for, like, I think it was like one of the, yeah, Star Wars Outlaws, and he was talking about like how putting the game on the 64 gig cartridge just wasn't going to be possible because the game was designed for the fast load times of the PS5 and the Xbox Series X. Like, their SSDs, at worst, can do like 2.4 gigs a second. They can read data like 2.4 gigs a second. And the best case scenario is obviously the PS5, because the PS5 can read data like 5 gigs a second. And comparing those speeds to the Switch 2's read speed, it's obviously a lot easier to make Star Wars Outlaws work on 2 gigs a second of read speed than 400 megabytes a second of read speed. Like that, like there's a certain, like optimization can only do so much. And yeah, that's why they weren't able to put, you know, Star Wars Outlaws on a physical cartridge, you know, a 64 gig cartridge. Like, he even said that money was not the issue, you know? He even, like he said that the financial cost of the 64 gig cartridge did not come into, you know, question, like, not even once. It was all about the limitations of, you know, the read speed of these cartridges. Now, some of you are going to say, but Mario Kart World is able to run on 400 megabytes of read speeds. Why can't Star Wars Outlaws do it? Well, Star Wars Outlaws was, you know, designed first for PS5s and Xbox Series X's. Stuff with pretty fast SSDs, you know. The Switch 2 has a comparable read speed to those, but it is a little bit slower. The difference is that Mario Kart World was designed for the Switch 2, you know, first. It's not gonna be a PS5 game or a PC game or a Xbox Series X game, at least in this timeline, that is. It was designed as a Switch 2 game first. That's why they were able to get, you know, the game to run on 400 megabytes a second of read speed, which is pretty impressive, honestly. But that's the kind of stuff you can do with like optimization and only working with one piece of hardware. So then I did some more research on like read speeds and stuff, and then I found out that the PS5 essentially does the same thing. Like I said, the Blu-ray discs can at best read data at like 36 megabytes a second. Comparing that to 5 gigs a second, that's like ants, basically. So what Sony does is that the game data is still on the disc. Like, you're still like owning the game when you like you're still holding the physical game when you know, pick it off the shelf. But the first time you put the game into the PS5, it installs itself to the SSD so that it can read faster, you know, so that it doesn't have to rely on the slow read speed of the Blu-ray disc. Which, when you really think about it, that means that there isn't really a need to store the game on, you know, the CD or a cartridge. So I guess Nintendo's just saving a little bit more money not making 2 copies of the game, because that's essentially what you have with the PS5. You have 2 copies of the game and you just load the one that's on, you know, your SSD. The Xbox does the exact same thing. Matter of fact, the PS4, the freaking Xbox One have been doing the exact same thing, and like no one has really been like that angry about it. Like, I feel like ever since like that generation started, it became, you know, like a lot more common to see like downloads like after you put the game into your console, you know, like after you put the game after you put your shiny new game of freaking after you put your shiny new Xbox One game into your console, you gotta install it to your console first. And I never knew what that was for, but now I know, and I feel bad for those developers for getting so much backlash. Now, not all new-gen games do this, you know. Some games are small enough to run on the read speeds of the cartridges and CDs. Like, for example, Mario Wonder. Oh shoot, this is Zelda. For example, Breath of the Wild can run on, you know, the read speeds of these Switch cartridges. Yep, so we can see that apparently I was dead wrong. Zelda does run on the cartridge, and so does Smash Bros. And all of these other physical games, but you see, they only store like, you know, a tiny bit of data. They don't really have the entire game on the, you know, the hard drive of the Switch. It's only so that it can read the game fast enough so that, you know, it doesn't have to load as much. So yeah, hopefully that gave you, you know, a better understanding of, you know, how games have to like load onto consoles, and why, you know, game key cards are so prevalent. You know, I still don't like the idea of them. Like, don't get me wrong, I completely understand why they're used right now, but I still hate the fact that you don't like that you don't actually own the game, that it's actually stored on your Switch, and that the thing on your shelf is just a freaking plastic is just it's just kind of plastic waste, because it's the exact same thing as just buying the game digitally, except you have the case that has the dumb game key card, what's it called, branding on it. But I definitely do understand that to make games, you know, like at the scale that we're making them right now, like as big as we've been making them for the past 10 to 15 years, we do gotta start compromising some stuff, you know, so that we can keep playing games that hopefully get bigger and not get worse, and don't get riddled with corporate greed and other stuff like that. You know, it definitely sucks that even if you still buy physical games, you still gotta take into consideration, you know, the storage space of like your SSD or your hard drive, because, you know, even though you buy physical games, they still take up space on your SSD or hard drive, so you still gotta worry about like if your storage will fill up one day. You know, you don't gotta worry about it like as much as people who buy, you know, digital do, but it's definitely something that should still be in your mind if you keep buying games. And honestly, I was shocked to find out that this type of video game died a long time ago, like long before the game key cards did. So I was honestly surprised, like, about, like, you know, why people are like so angry about the game key cards, because like this type of game has been dead for a while. Like the game that's all physical, it doesn't install itself to the, you know, to the console whatsoever, and the game that you can just pop in and just not worry about any like downloads and stuff like that. You know, these games have been dead for a long time now. I genuinely don't think Nintendo is trying to push digital gaming, but at the same time, it still kind of looks like they are, because they only make one you know, storage size for the game cartridges, which is 64 gigs. A lot of games still are not 64 gigs, you know, like a lot of the smaller games. So it would make sense for them to use, you know, smaller sizes like 32 gigs and 16 gigs and 8 gigs and 4 gigs and maybe even a 2 gig version, who knows, man. But yeah, they don't do that, which it's like, why wouldn't you do that? Like, it's definitely dumb. At the same time, Nintendo themselves could have just put all their games on the game key cards themselves, and they could have like disincentivized you from buying physical even more, because at that point you would just be buying plastic. Like, oh, I'm holding Mario Kart World, but you're really holding the plastic that they manufactured in a sweatshop factory. It definitely sucks, because physical media was and still is like ingrained into the gaming culture. You know, like when you think of, oh, I want to start a gaming collection, you don't think of a freaking digital collection on your Switch or any other console. You think of, like, you know, a physical wall of games, you know, a physical wall of games in like a room or something that you can just pick up one of them and be like, oh, I played this game one time when I was like a toddler or something. It's the same thing with music and with movies. A lot of people say that, oh, gaming was ingrained with physical. Yeah, it was, but so was like movies and TV and music, you know? Like, it used to be that when a movie came out, or when a show that was like really popular, you know, was done airing, it would get like a DVD, you know, release, or like you know, it would get a home release or a Blu-ray release, and you would buy that when you so you can watch that whenever you wanted. You could pop it into your Blu-ray or CD player and watch that whenever you wanted. Same thing with VHS, you know, in like the 1980s and 90s and stuff. Same thing with music too. You used to be able to buy albums, like physical albums. The PS1 literally played music CDs, so that kind of proves my point a little bit. So while physical media is kind of like ingrained into the buying experience, I'd say it was still on the same level as, like, you know, movies and TV, or, music. The only reason it's lasted longer than those is because gamers are stubborn little craps. Like, think about it. Microsoft, Sony, and Nintendo make so much more money than if you buy the game digitally than physically, because you're buying it off their store. They don't gotta worry about paying any of these retailers, or paying, like, you know, just any other, like, you know, fees that they would have paid if they, you know, made the game physical, than if you would just bought it digital, you know, off their storefront, which they would have made all the money from. That could also still be a supporting factor of, like, oh, Nintendo still wants to keep around physical games, but the technical limitations are, you know, limiting that. Because if they really wanted to, they could have just not made game key cards altogether, which kind of sounds like, you know, like, oh, you do want that, right? Because there's nothing on the cards, you know? But at the same time, Nintendo still is supporting physical games. So yeah, hopefully after watching this video, you're not gonna argue over Reddit about if games should be on game key cards or not, because that's the thing with the internet for me. It's like, oh, something's gonna be like a big controversy for like a week or 2 weeks. Like, for example, as of recording this video, people are so mad about the Xbox Game Pass pricing. Like, they changed Game Pass Ultimate from 15 bucks a month to 30 bucks a month. Which, if that was the only pricing for Game Pass, yeah, that would be, you know, like a lot of money. But Game Pass is still like 15 bucks a month, you know? And there's also a cheaper 10 bucks a month freaking starter pack Game Pass. But let's not talk about that stupid, disgusting, wretched, supported with ads, cloud gaming 5 bucks a month tier. The internet is genuinely like bursting out with rage on the Xbox Game Pass pricing. It's like, dude, think about it for a second, alright? You're telling me that you're getting 400 games a month, like, that you can play. Because let's just throw out game ownership right now. Because if you're already subscribing to these services and not buying the games on yourself, you probably don't even care about game ownership. Like, let's be honest. Because the internet's like, oh, game ownership, you don't own the game. Yeah, you don't own the game because it's a subscription service. Why would you own the game after you stop paying for the subscription service that made you get the game in the first place? Like, that's just my take on it. 400 plus games a month for 30 bucks a month honestly seems like a fair deal to me, and I'm being quite honest. And that's only if Microsoft can, like, you know, up the value of Game Pass further, you know? Because if they're gonna charge more for it, then you have to spend more on Game Pass to justify this price point, you know? But like I'm saying, people are so mad about Game Pass Ultimate, like, costing 10 bucks more. Dude, just get the Game Pass freaking premium package. It's 15 bucks a month. You get 200 plus games a month. And it's basically like Game Pass Ultimate, alright? Game Pass Ultimate still kind of exists. It's just been renamed to Game Pass, you know, Premium. The real new tier is Game Pass is the rebranded Game Pass Ultimate, alright? That is where the value, I think, hopefully, is going to show. Hopefully. That's a big if. It's like the internet will freak out over, you know, like, something new that's got announced, but they won't think about, like, oh, maybe there's a reason that this happened, or maybe, you know, there's extra value that they're gonna add to this, you know, to this platform that will justify the price. Like, oh, I'm not gonna join the internet in their rage, like against, like, Microsoft and Nintendo right now, because, dude, I understand, like, game file sizes are huge and the read speeds are not fast enough for physical formats, you know? And on Xbox's side, hey, as long as you provide the value that you're trying to advertise for 30 bucks a month, then we can come to a conclusion that, yes, you were indeed right. The internet had to calm down and breathe for a little bit. I realized that I kind of sound like a shill in this video because Microsoft has already raised prices of the Series X, the Series S. Freaking even their dev kits have risen. So due to their market conditions that are apparently so much worse for them, other than Sony and Nintendo. But I'm gonna hope that Microsoft is gonna provide some more value. I'm just gonna stand by what I said in this video. So, yeah, that's just my little rant. Where should I end this video? Maybe I'll copy MKBHD this time, but I'll put a twist on it. See you guys later. Until next time. Peace.